We're going to talk about worms, Warpugs. We're going to talk about the worm, and not the worm that goes in the bottom of tequila. I'm just saying. Guys, this is TierZoo. And, well, be honest with you guys, we're about to learn the worm tier list. The worm tier list. Hobbit, you have a great night, my guy. Yes, we will enjoy the worms. Get yourself some dewormer, Warpugs. Have yourself a sip of Monster or Gamer Subs that you can get, you know, code Rubik's, 10% off. In any case, God. Anyhow, TierZoo, Warpugs, let's get right into it, okay? Worms. Just worms, let's go. Who here has never seen TierZoo before? X in chat. Oh!
The humble worm may be
Yes.
one of the most overlooked characters in the entire game. Though they may seem powerless and pathetic, in reality the worm faction has access to some of the rarest, most extraordinary special abilities in the game,
That's disgusting.
and can be a nightmare to play against. But which worm builds are dominating the meta, and which are just bait? Find out in the worm tier list.
The worm tier
But
list.
before we dive into the rankings, what even
That's nasty.
is a worm? Even though they're the most numerous creatures in the game, technically there's no such thing as a single all-encompassing worm faction.
80% of all creatures on Earth are worms?
Worm builds are actually part of several different, distantly related factions, but there are many similarities they share. All worms have long, tube-shaped character models with minimal or non-existent appendages, enabling them to weave in and out of tight spaces easily. Simple as it may be, this has proven to be one of the most reliable body plans in the history of the game, as worms have been in the game since pretty much patch 1.0. As far as base stats go, worms are not particularly stacked.
Okay.
Now, credit where it's due, because of their excellent regenerative perks and uniquely advanced burrowing abilities, they do score pretty high in both vitality and stealth.
Right.
And there are exceptions that score high in other stats
That is called a graboid. That is exactly what that is, JR. That is a graboid.
as well. But
Good lord, that is nightmare.
in general, they have below average base stats in almost every skill. With simple brains, no weapons, no armor, and no legs, the average worm is pretty lacking in their intelligence, power, defense, and mobility stats. The exceptions are where it gets interesting though. So without further ado, let's dig into the tier list.
Cool. Ice worm.
First in F tier, the Ice Worm. This build takes the burrowing capabilities of the worm in an unconventional direction, and opts to dig through glaciers rather than solid earth. This is a pretty unique gimmick as it grants them completely unconditional access to glacial algae as a food source. But unfortunately, it seems like unlocking the ability to burrow through ice must have cost all their evolution points, because the Ice Worm has some pretty glaring flaws in its strategy. First, the Ice Worm's stealth stat is abysmal. Its jet black appearance offers zero camouflage against the icy white surroundings, making them
Dude, that looks like something off the X-Files. I'm not even gonna lie.
extremely easy for birds to spot from above and pick off. A few extra points into snow camouflage would go a long way here. And the second flaw, ice worms ironically have almost zero freezing resistance or heat resistance.
What?
They die immediately if temperatures drop below freezing, and melt if temperatures rise to even a few degrees above freezing.
How bad do you have to get shit on by nature?
Luckily, due to a quirk of the game's physics engine, the temperature of glacial ice is fairly stable at their exact Goldilocks zone. But as we've seen lately, relying on glaciers as a stable habitat is quite the gamble. It wouldn't take too much to make this build completely broken, but for now, it's the lowest ranked worm on this list.
Okay. Earthworm.
Also in F tier, we have the Earthworm. Yes, it's true, the archetypal worm everyone knows and loves is a low tier. Earthworms have terrible stats. It has no offensive moves, no armor, and isn't quick enough to rely on speed to escape attacks. What's worse, even the one special ability Earthworms are believed to have is a bit overrated. Earthworms, like most worms, can regenerate from damage and potentially even survive grievous wounds, if they manage to get away. But that's a big if. Most builds that spec into high passive health regen also tend to spec into the autotomy perk as well. This perk allows the user's appendages to break off if grabbed, allowing them to escape a grappling attack. This is a costly ability and one that I normally don't speak very highly of, but situationally it can be extremely clutch. Earthworms do not have this perk, and so when attacked, they often cannot do anything except tank the damage and try to burrow away. If that doesn't work, they're completely out of options.
Leech.
In D tier, we have the Leech. As the
yes! The ancient of the ancient... I have pity, Warpugs. It's been a long day. I was going to say the ancient remedy for everything.
Literal namesake for the term used to describe deliberately being carried by the rest of your team, I actually think leeches are done a bit dirty. Yes, many leech players do fit the description, attacking a player in a higher weight class and just coasting off the free XP. But there are plenty of leech players who play an honest, active hunting strategy and have to fight to survive, same as any other predatory build. Like most other aquatic builds, they thrive off of their strong matchup against low tiers like frogs, and spawn camp them mercilessly. Leeches share the same garbage base stats as most other worms though, and with lackluster defenses and mobility, they still get one-shot by fish, birds, and snakes all the time.
Oh my god,
Frankly,
what?
the parasite strategy might actually be the less viable of the two, as leeches are not well protected at all when attached to a host, and can easily get picked off by perceptive players.
Horsehair worm.
In C tier, we have the horsehair worm. This nematode takes the burrowing proficiency of the worm faction and uses it for an unorthodox purpose. Burrowing into flesh. Horsehair worm players opt for the parasitoid game plan, infecting their hosts when they drink from contaminated water. It then uses its burrowing ability to pierce the digestive tract and hide out in the insect's circulatory system, leeching XP from it as it continues its playthrough relatively unimpeded. But once the worm reaches its max level, it activates its special ability Mind Control to change the insect's quest objective marker to the nearest body of water.
Bro, no. The mind worm exists. The mind worm exists, and I don't want it.
Once the insect player self-destructs, the worm burrows out of its body and continues with the rest of its program. This strategy is incredibly effective and requires very little technical skill, as once you successfully infect a host, you can farm XP entirely AFK. Mind Control is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, and it's shocking the devs gave it to a random worm build. Still, as with any parasitoid playstyle, the main downside is that your survival is tied to that of your host. So if you pick a scrub, you might get one-shot when they accidentally wander too close to a spider's den. And this isn't just a hypothetical. In fact, in some servers, the fish player base is literally reliant on janitoring the self-destructing players. Still, at least by being an internal parasite, they don't run the risk of being picked off like the leech does.
Fireworm.
In B tier, we have the fireworm.
Dude, that looks awesome. I'm not even gonna lie, that looks pretty cool, okay? That looks pretty cool.
Excellent defensive stats. Fireworms have toxic spines, which inflict serious damage on any player dumb enough to attack them. This effect is powerful enough that even large tank builds cannot just eat the damage, and learn quickly not to.
That turtle was like, you mother...
Mess with them. Unfortunately for fireworm mains, because their spikes are small and fragile, they cannot pierce thick chitin or keratin armor. This means any player with a thick exoskeleton can completely negate the fireworm's defense, and crush them like they would any other worm. Some fish mains have also spec'd into the beak attribute in order to be able to do the same thing.
Those absolutely scare the crap out of me. The parrot bills on those are just, no.
Parrotfish and pufferfish are a huge problem for builds that rely on defensive abilities, as their powerful beaks can crush armor and don't take damage from poison spikes. So, fireworms are untouchable to a lot of players, but there's enough counterplay prevalent in the meta right now that I can't give them a high tier rank.
Giant tube worm.
Also in B tier, we have the tube worm. Of all the lazy AFK XP farming builds in the game, there isn't a single one that goes to as extreme of lengths to do so as the tube worm.
Nice.
The tube worm has crazy high toxic damage resistance. Not because it needs to tank venom damage, not because it preys upon builds that use poison for defense. No, the tube worm needs toxic damage resistance because its strategy is to set up shop next to deep sea hydrothermal vents and basically eat the sulfur jetting out from them.
Nice.
It absorbs hydrogen sulfide using its plume, and because of a special team-up ability they have with bacteria, they're actually able to use that as an XP source. Meaning they don't even need to really eat at all. They don't need to find food, they just constantly absorb the noxious sulfur spewing out of these vents. Because the sulfide turns water around these vents toxic, the tube worm doesn't have to worry about attacks from predators. They do, however, have to worry about the vents shutting down.
Right.
Hydrothermal vents do not last forever, and when they go dark, or erupt into lava flows, it's GG for entire colonies of tube worms. An incredibly effective XP farming technique, but like a lot of these types of strats, it works until it doesn't.
Right. The velvet worm. Are you guys learning something? X and Chaff, you're learning some stuff today.
In A tier, we have the velvet worm.
Dude!
This build has even worse defensive stats than the other worms, as it doesn't have the same slime coating that the others do. However, it makes up for it by converting that slime ability into one of the most unique abilities in the game, a projectile attack. The velvet worm can fire a glue-like slime from its papillae. This slime attack deals no damage, it's not toxic, and doesn't hit with near enough force to be threatening on its own. However, the slime is sticky and hardens quickly, debuffing the target's speed stat and potentially even completely immobilizing it. This slime is extremely strong once hardened, similar to spider silk in terms of what it's capable of immobilizing. Even builds with vastly higher power stats are not safe from being essentially frozen by the velvet worm's attacks. Now, while this is no doubt a powerful ability, it has plenty of limitations.
Oh, nice,
It is
Sosa.
woefully inaccurate and will struggle to hit smaller or evasive targets consistently.
Sadness.
It is also relatively short-ranged, only being able to hit targets a few body lengths away. And because it doesn't deal any direct damage, even if the Velvet Worm manages to pin down a build like the Centipede or Scorpion, it'll still be taking on considerable counterattack risk when it tries to approach. And last in A tier,
the Bobbit Worm. The Bobbit Worm. We all know what this is named after.
Here we have the Bobbit Worm. This build is easily one of the most terrifying things, not just in the Worm faction, but in the entire game. The Bobbit Worm is a mid-sized benthic worm build which can burrow up to 10 feet deep into the ocean floor. However, unlike most burrowing worm builds, the Bobbit Worm is not a scavenger. It's not burrowing to look for food scraps or to escape predators. No, the Bobbit Worm is an ambush build. It lies in wait, and as soon as another player wanders close enough to its burrow, it strikes, using what may genuinely be the most wicked pair of mandibles in the entire game. These powerful jaws inflict devastating damage, while simultaneously hooking into their target so that it can be dragged down below the ocean floor, never to be seen again.
Lovely!
Now, despite their ferocity, I don't want to overhype the Bobbit Worm. Though they are menacing, skilled players can play around their threat range pretty easily. Their low perception stats make them pretty inaccurate when lunging towards their targets. Their attacks are deceptively slow, and as long as you position yourself even slightly above the seabed, they should be reactable and easily dodged. Skilled fish players have even been known to drive Bobbit Worm players out of their territory by teaming up and mobbing their burrows. This requires a successful perception check with a pretty high DC, but if your party is competent enough, you really shouldn't have to worry about Bobbit Worms that much. Despite being easily the most terrifying build on this list, the Bobbit Worm's poor frame data and predictable game plan keeps it out of the higher tiers.
The Sarlacc in progress? I would believe so, my man.
And in S tier, we have the Hammerhead Flatworm.
Okay.
Flatworms are the solo hunters of the Worm faction, and the Hammerhead Flatworm is one of the best at it. They're faster than other worms, which isn't saying a lot, but still, it's relevant.
Right.
They possess a devastatingly powerful neurotoxic slime, the same toxin found in pufferfish and blue-ringed octopus, which they employ both offensively and defensively.
Okay, you didn't know pufferfish, you can die. Blue-ringed octopus, you can really die. Those are very strong toxins.
But their most recognizable feature, their wide, flat head, was a bit of a gamble in terms of how they spent their evolution points. By speccing into the Hammerhead attribute, these flatworms sacrificed their ability to dig efficiently. But in doing so, they greatly boosted their perception stat.
Right.
Similar to the Hammerhead shark, the flatworm's hammerhead is loaded with chemoreceptors, enabling the worm to track down prey by following its scent.
I wouldn't doubt it.
To their toxic
I wouldn't doubt it, JR.
Flatworms are the best regenerators in the game, able to heal all the way back to full health, even when cut into tiny pieces. They can really only be permanently defeated by non-physical damage, such as dehydration, salt, acid, that sort of thing. Because it's borderline unkillable through conventional combat, the Hammerhead Flatworm is the only worm build to achieve the rank of S tier. The hammerhead flatworm's excellent tracking abilities ensure that even without eyes, it knows exactly where it's going. And even though I do have eyes, to be totally honest, sometimes I still get lost while exploring the internet. Or at least I used to, until I started using today's sponsor, Opera.
Oh!
Opera is my new main for the internet meta, as it's stacked with tons of powerful abilities other
There we
browsers
go.
wish they had. Here are some of my favorite ones. For keeping myself productive and avoiding getting sidetracked, I use Opera's tab features, like tab traces that leave subtle visual traces under my tabs, helping me retrace my steps at a glance. The darker the underscore, the more recently you visited the tab. This is super helpful and means I don't have to manually sift through all of my open tabs to find out where I just came from. And thanks to Tab Islands, I can group my tabs by project or theme.
Alex,
So
thanks
all
for
my
the follow,
animal stock
bud.
Footage clips stay in one place.
Unhinged Back to the
Meanwhile,
Future.
All of my travel planning stays in another.
They're separate
I can
parasite
collapse and
pipe
expand
size.
them as needed, keeping my workspace clean.
I would
and
assume
clutter-free.
so.
I can even drag one tab down to activate.
You know what?
the
Actually, probably not. Two worms, tapeworms would probably be in the worm family, to be honest with you.
awesome split screen feature, which splits the window so I can work on two things at once without needing to switch back and forth between tabs or open a separate browser session. Look, I can reopen all of my research in a single move. Opera is also super customizable, so I picked a theme that I felt really matched the fantasy gaming vibe that I love. It even has sound effects. For me, Opera's best feature is its built-in music player, which I can detach to fully control my music without needing to interrupt my workflow. I can even use it outside the browser, so I can edit while listening to my tunes. Same thing applies for...
He listens to Phil Collins. Okay. And, yeah, Adobe Premiere Pro is not fun to deal with sometimes. I know.
For videos. With the video pop-out feature, I can detach videos while browsing or using another app on my computer. For example, I can watch an educational video while I do my research or answer my emails. It's super practical for multitasking and productivity. Opera has been a game changer for me, and I know you'll love it too. Check the description below to download Opera for free today.
Well, there you go.
Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to my patrons, especially my amazing God tier patrons.
Okay. So, some of these builds I already knew about. In particular, I did know some about the flatworm, just because you hear the term. I didn't know all that about the flatworm. I didn't know how toxic it was. I had no idea how it hunted. This thing, everybody knows about at some point, just because it's the bobbit worm. We know this. Knew about this guy from actual nature documentaries. I have seen something like this before. I think there's another animal that does this. I think it's an ant that does this kind of thing too. These guys, I had no idea existed, to be honest with you. I had no idea this thing existed, but it's actually kind of awesome. It just shows you how weird life can be sometimes. Like, it shows you just how weird life is capable of being. To be completely and totally honest with you guys, it's a different kind of experience when you take a look at this stuff. It really is. It really, really is. The one thing that I think really sets TierZoo apart is just the way that he puts everything out there. Who would have thought? Make a tier list out of animals. Let's go. Warpugs. This is the reason the platforms like this exist. I'm just saying. The 150-pound murder parrot? No thank you, Sosa. No thank you. I can deal without that. I can honestly deal without that. The thorny devil shoots blood out of his tear ducts? Yeah, it does. It's weird. It is what it is, Warpugs. Sometimes you just have to blast a bitch with blood vessels out of your eyes. That's the weirdest. It's so... Nature's so weird. Nature is just... It's just weird, okay? How did these things wind up happening is the biggest question that I have half the time. I can't even begin to fathom how some of these animals evolved. Hey guys, thank you for checking out TierZoo with me. If you would, support them by visiting the links in the description down below. I have all of them down there. Thank you so much for watching. Join us a member of Patreon for early access, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys next time. Hit the like button.